Hi friends, this is Leela. Welcome to my channel. In this video, we will try to see a basic example, counter thing, incrementing the counter, decrementing counter example. We'll try to see in this video, and we will write the code without using the store. So without using the store concept, how we can implement the counter example, we'll try to see in this video. And after that, we will implement that same example using the store management, state management. We'll try to implement. So what is the code I will be trying to implement is here is the counter example. So we will be having three components, that is nothing but the counter component and the counter output component, which displays the counter, incrementing, decrementing. The counter output will be displaying this component responsibility, and here you will be having the counter buttons. In these buttons you will be having, in this component you will be having the three buttons: increment, decrement, and also the reset button. Now in this component, in this parent component, in this counter component, you will be having one variable counter is equal to 0, and you will be having the three methods: on increment, on decrement, on reset. So which will update the accordingly this counter variable. And now this counter variable, the output will be shown in the below this child component, counter output. So that means we need to pass this variable to the as an input to the child component. And now the buttons, where it is located, the buttons are located not in the parent component, the buttons are located in the child component here in this counter buttons. So here we need to emit the events, increment, decrement, reset events to the parent component, so that accordingly depending on that event the methods will be executed. So let's try to implement this one in a practical. So we have seen the diagram, right? So how to implement? So we have a three components. Counter component is the parent component. We'll be having the counter output, and we'll be having the counter buttons. So let's try to implement this scenario. So before that, what we'll try to do is we'll try to create a project where we can create a project. Here I am having this one. So I'm going to a command prompt. I am creating new NGRX hyphen counter. Okay, let's create the project. It will ask me, would you like to add Angular routing? No, I don't want to add right now. So CSS, it will create files that are necessary for deploying, for executing the Angular application. It will take some time. Let it take that some time. The project has been successfully installed. Now let's open this one in our Visual Studio Code. So let's open here. Go to the NGRX hyphen counter and open this one in the Visual Studio. So after it's opening, now here you will be able to see the project. And now what I will be trying to do here, the source, and here the app is there, right? Now let's try to create the components, counter component, counter output, and the counter buttons. So I am creating the components here. So let's go to the terminal, and here what I will try to do is, let's type the command ng-gc counter/counter. I will use something like this. So counter/counter means in the counter folder it will create the counter component. Let it create the counter component. The counter component has been created, and also I am creating ng-gc counter/counter output. So counter output also I am creating. Counter output also is created. Now I will create ng-gc counter/counter buttons. I will create the counter buttons also. Now if you try to see here, you are having the counter folder, and in this one you are having the counter output, and also the counter buttons. So you are having the counter buttons. So these three are the components what we have created. Now what I will try to do, so let's close this one, and before closing this one, I'll try to run ng serve. So let's run the server. Now here we will try to install the bootstrap. Get bootstrap. I am taking the get bootstrap. So for designing purpose, I am taking the get bootstrap. So commonly what I will try to do is go to get started, and here copy this one, and let's paste it in the index.html for the time being. And here I am pasting this one. So we have did one thing, and now what we need to do, let's go to the app.component.html, and you need to remember that you need to add, after all the components you have created, you need to add it in the declarations. You need to remember this one, app module. So ngCLI automatically has installed these all things. Now let's go to the app component.html. Here I am removing all these. I am taking one container. Okay, I am taking one container here. Sorry, so I am taking one container. Container. Okay, so container, in this one I am adding one row, call md-12. Okay, here I will add app-counter. Okay, so this is the app-counter. This is the first one. So let's go here and let's try to open this localhost 4200. If I open localhost 4200, let's try to see the output here. If I try to see the output, it's not, we are not able to see what has happened. Here it's still compiling. Let it compile. Angular is successfully compiled. Now I will open this one. Here I am able to see counter works. Fine. Now what I will try to do is, let's try to make it as text-center so that everything will be in the center. Now I will go to the counter component. Now what I want to do here, I will have again one row, one column 12. So these are the things are bootstrap classes, no need to worry. So div, I will keep top and bottom margin. Okay, and here I will be creating app-counter-output. Okay, this is the component what we have created. In the same scenario, div class is equal to what I can do, my-3, and here app-counter-buttons. So these are the components we have thought, right? So if you see the presentation here, counter component is the main component, that is nothing but the counter. In this one you are having the two child components, counter output and the counter buttons. In the same scenario, this is the counter is the main parent, and in this one child you are having counter output and the counter buttons. Now let's go to here. We have seen that counter one variable we need to implement, and also we need to add the three methods, on increment, on decrement and on reset. So let's go here and go to the counter, this counter.component.ts. This is the main, and here what I will try to do, I will create a variable of type number is equal to 0. So first variable I have declared. Now here on increment, okay, now on decrement, these are the methods, right? We need to implement on decrement, and also another one is the on reset. These are the three methods we need to implement. And here what I need to do, this dot counter plus plus, I need to increment 1, right? So that is the reason. And here I can do this dot counter minus minus, I can do it this dot counter minus minus. And here what I can do, this dot counter is equal to 0. So this is the basic logic what we can see in the counter main component. Now this counter variable what we are having, we should not show it here, we should be showing it in the counter output. So that means here counter output, if you go to the counter output here in the HTML, we need to show it here. So that means in the div here in the h3, and here counter is something like this I can write, and here I need to show the counter. But we know that in this TS we don't have the counter variable, it is present in the parent component counter. Here it is present. So how we can do this one, we can pass it as a input to here. So counter is equal to, I can send as a counter. Okay, now here in this counter output we need to capture that input as @input counter. Okay, so we need to capture it like this. So if you are unable to understand this input and all those things, as I already told you before continuing this Angular NGRX, you should be familiar in the Angular. If you are not familiar in the Angular, you can go and see my Angular complete course guide. In those things I have covered all these concepts. Okay, so @input, here what I can do, so counter we will be able to see. Now if I try to see the output here, I am able to see the counter is 0. Perfect. So if I now what I need to do, now the buttons part is there. So here the buttons, what I will try to do is, here I will try to create one div, and here I will have one button. Okay, so increment, and another one is the decrement, and another one is the reset. Sorry, reset. These are the three buttons we are having. So here I can write class is equal to btn hyphen primary. I can take classes like this, and here I can write btn hyphen warning, and here I can write btn hyphen info or something like this. So for gap purpose, what I will try to do, I will keep one ampersand NBRSP. Now if I try to see the output here, I am able to see the buttons. So if I click here increment or decrement, so the counter has to increment. But here the buttons are existing in the counter buttons component. So in this counter buttons component, we don't have the counter variable. The counter variable is present in the parent. So somehow we need to send an event, emit an event to the parent component. So let's try to implement the click event for this one. Click is equal to on increment. Okay, so this is the method, and here I will write for that on decrement. Okay, on decrement, and here what I will try to do, and here I will write on reset. So these are the three methods I will be implementing. So let's try to implement here in the TypeScript file. So here you will be having the on increment. In the same scenario, you will be having on decrement, and here we will be having on reset. So now what I need to do, I need to send an event for each event for each action. I need to send an event to the parent component. So let's try to create the events. So I am creating events separately for each one. If you want one event to be filterized, means you can also do like that. So first what I will try to do, @output. Okay, and the name of the event for the increment is increment is equal to new event emitter of void. So I will not send any data. Okay, in the same scenario I can write decrement. In the same scenario I can write reset. So I have created three types of events. So now here on increment means what I will try to do, this dot increment dot emit. I will emit the increment, and in the on decrement what I can do, this dot decrement dot emit. Okay, now here what I will try to do, this dot reset, right, reset dot emit. So whenever we click on this button, so this type of corresponding events will be emitted. Now we need to capture those events in the parent. So how we can capture those events? So this is the component which is responsible for raising the events, right? Now here I can write the event name. Increment is the event name. So whenever this event is raised, so I need to call on increment method. In the same scenario, whenever decrement is raised, I need to run on decrement method, right? Now whenever reset is raised, now I need to call on reset method. So now the events has been captured. Whenever the increment event has been fired, so on increment method will be executed, so that the counter will be increased. Automatically the counter will be sent to the counter output component. Let's try to see the output here. If I try to refresh this one, if I click in counter, see I am able to increment the counter. If I click on reset, 0 is also there. So now we have implemented the basic counter using the input output emitter events. Okay, so for now implementing the basic thing for basic counter, so what we have did, we are sending as a input to this one, and also we are taking the events. We have written so much of logic here. If you see, we are raising the events, we are creating the events, and we are raising the event for this one. Okay, so this is how we will be writing without using the NGRX. How we will be writing, and also we can write in another scenario also, keeping this counter in a service file. We creating a separate service, keeping that counter in a service, and keeping all these methods in the service itself, counter plus plus and all those things. So calling that service methods on increment like this also you can do. So I will give you as a task for you, so you can implement the same thing as a service also, creating that service and communicating the service with the service. So doing all these are updating and resetting options in the service. Let's try once, then then you will understand the component communication without using NGRX, how we will be implementing. So these are the two ways how we can implement. I showed you some complex way, input output thing. This is how we will be doing. So now using this approach, it is somewhat for less components only, it is somewhat looking more complex. So if you have so many components, means you need to write input and output, everything you need to emit the events, you need to take as input property. This will become a very tedious job. Okay, it is also very hard to understand. So that is the reason NGRX store. So NGRX store, with the using the NGRX store, we can remove all these type of problems, and we can solve this thing in a simple way. So in the next video, what we'll try to do is, we will try to convert the same example, same logic into the NGRX store. We'll step by step we'll convert it into the NGRX store, and we'll save this counter state in the NGRX, and we'll try to implement this one. Okay, so if you want this code to be, if you want this code, so I will be posting that one in the GitHub repository. So you can go to my GitHub repository and you can get the code, this one code, and also the future code, whatever the things I will be writing in the future code also, it will be present in my GitHub repository, and the link I will be providing it in the description. So you can find the description link below this video. If you have any doubts or any suggestions, please post the comments below to this video. And if you like this video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel. Thank you.